Join me, if you will, in a trip back into history to the early 1940s, to the first years of World War II. The deadly, dangerous forces of evil totalitarian dictatorships in Germany, Italy, and Japan were winning the war. They had already conquered much of Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Japan had just attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor. Thus, there was great fear that the American homeland might be attacked next and possibly invaded. Here in Cape May, which was a vital location guarding the even more vital oil, ammunition, and shipbuilding facilities along the Delaware Bay and River, there was great fear of a German surface ship bombarding the area, or air raids, or even an amphibious invasion. Offshore, German submarines terrorized our shipping. The United States Navy ship Jacob Jones, the first American warship sunk after Pearl Harbor, had been destroyed 35 miles off the coast of Cape May. The U.S. Army built Fire Control Tower number 23 in 1942 as part of a defense complex guarding the Delaware Bay called Fort Miles. It included 3 more such towers here on the Jersey Cape and 11 more on Cape Henlopen. They helped aim the guns of what we call the bunker, what was officially called Battery 223, now by the lighthouse. There were 2 more bunkers at Cape Henlopen and a minefield, 3 of them stretching from cape to cape. The U.S. Navy, operating out of what is today the Cape May Coast Guard base, used ships and aircraft to battle the submarines. As you visit the tower, you'll learn more about this and about its operation, and how it was built by local workmen and could withstand the blasts of big guns and big bombs, which thankfully never came. You'll learn that in the latter years of the war, the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary and civilians replaced the Army in standing watch here. Thankfully, there never was an attack by a surface ship, or any aircraft, or any invasion. Eventually, the submarine threat diminished. We won the war. We won the war, and the world was temporarily safe again. We won in large part because of the heroism of a generation of Americans and their allies.
At the beginning of the war, the U.S. military took immediate steps to defend the mouth of the Delaware Bay. They fortified both sides of the bay and ordered Battery B, 261st Coast Artillery, to set up a battery of 4 155mm guns on Panama mounts on the beach in front of the Cape May Lighthouse. The Army had developed these mounts to defend the Panama Canal Zone. They are temporary mounts with a concrete pedestal at the center of a circular rail, also embedded in concrete. The gun carriage trail ends rode on the rail for ease of training the gun. The 155mm gun is about 19 feet long, weighs about 8,700 pounds, and can fire a projectile up to 10.9 miles. The next step was to mine the bay. U.S. Army mine planters planted floating M3 mines in the shipping lanes at the mouth of the bay, and placed Cape May under the command of Fort Miles at Cape Henlopen, where they located a harbor entrance control post. These mines were anchored about 15 feet below the surface and required that the ship physically contact the mine. When a ship struck a mine, it transmitted a signal through a wire to a soldier in the control post. If the ship was an enemy ship, a soldier detonated the mine electrically. At night, floodlights illuminated any ship that struck a mine. The completed minefield had a total count of 455 mines, making the Delaware Bay one of the most heavily mined bay entrances in the country, second only to the Chesapeake. The Fort Miles Command Center built complete self-contained Army bases on both Cape Henlopen and Cape May to house the personnel manning the Delaware Bay's defenses. Each base had, among other things, barracks, mess halls, movie theaters, motor pools, and post offices. They placed Cape May's base on government property adjacent to the lighthouse and the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard buildings. With the bay basically defended, the Army began building permanent armored lookout towers and bunkers for bigger guns on both capes. Restoration architect Robert Russell describes the construction of Tower 23 for us.
For those of you who are wondering, the tower is 71 feet tall. The exterior walls are about 1 foot thick. It was designed to resist damage if it was attacked. The construction system was significant in that it was a slip form type of construction system. There was formwork built on the inside and the outside, and it was filled and jacked up as the concrete forms were filled. The bulk of the tower that you see out there was in fact constructed in a matter of 2 to 3 days. The floors were constructed inside of the walls after the walls were put in place, and those were done in a conventional manner. The 6th level was the primary business end of the tower, if you will. On the 6th level, observers were to look out the slit windows to sight using the Asthma systems to aim the guns.
The Army built these towers to last and to take a beating. They poured each floor with reinforced concrete. The walls are thick enough to withstand minor shelling, but these towers are not really fortified. Vertical ladders against the tower's wall pass through hatches in each floor, hatches that are just large enough for a soldier to pass through. The next floor's hatch is offset a quarter of the way around the wall. Should someone fall from a ladder, they would harmlessly fall only a few feet. Windows at each floor not only allowed light into the tower, but allowed air to circulate at each floor. The slits at the top on the 6th level are the eyes of the tower. These wide slits give those inside a panoramic view of the sea around them. When a target enters that view, the spotters swing into action, accurately aiming a Swayze depression rangefinder and an Asthma Scope to get the range and bearing of the target. Ambrose Swayze, astronomer and inventor, patented the depression rangefinder on September 1st, 1903. When this instrument is trained on a ship's waterline from a known height, its depression angle accurately returns the ship's range. The Asthma Scope is a powerful telescope with a split view that allows the operator to see the target and its compass bearing. Back in the dunes near the Cape May Lighthouse, the Army built a real fortress. An underground reinforced concrete bunker with a 7-inch thick wall facing the ocean, fronted by 2 6-inch armored naval gun mounts that could fire a 90-pound projectile over 15 miles. The bunker is the nerve center for the eyes of the coastal defense system of towers and guns on Cape May. It contains ammunition rooms, a plotting room, and a telephone switchboard and radio room. Here's how it all works together. The distance between the 2 towers along the beachfront creates a known baseline for a triangle. Soldiers in each tower aim their depression rangefinder and azimuth scope at the waterline of any target to determine its range and angle from that baseline. The spot where the 2 towers' sight lines meet completes the triangle and is the exact location of the target. Once a target is acquired, a time interval bell rings every 30 seconds. At each ring, the tower's crew reports the target's range and direction, and the plotting room crew calculates the target's location, speed, and course. They direct the gun to fire, and the guns roar to life. Fortunately, those guns were never fired in anger. The war ended and left Tower 23 without an enemy to look out for. A lonely sentinel with nothing to guard. After the last spotter left, the Army closed the tower. They even cemented over the door opening. In the decades that followed, the tower deteriorated. Vandals had their way with this once proud defender of our seacoast. They demolished the windows with bullets and rocks. Even the windows' frames rotted and decayed. Chunks of concrete fell away, revealing the steel stress rods beneath. Of the 4 towers in Cape May County, only Tower 23 remains standing intact and alone. The Grand Hotel on Beach Avenue in Cape May simply built their hotel around the Tower 24 and painted it blue to blend with the sky. You can still see it, though, above the hotel's roof, looking out to sea for enemy ships that never came. Towers 25 and 26, located in Wildwood Crest and North Wildwood, suffered demolition. Somebody tried to save Tower 26 in North Wildwood by converting it into a beach house with a view and a sun deck. But it too finally fell to the wrecking ball. People began to forget what that strange tower on Sunset Boulevard was even used for. Its history actually became lost. The general consensus was that it was a submarine lookout tower. Then at the beginning of the new millennium, Americans suddenly gained a new curiosity and interest in all things about World War II. Tom Brokaw may have started it all with his book, The Greatest Generation, published in 1998. The title became a watchword for the first decade of the new millennium. In 2002, the Mid-Atlantic Center for the Arts, MAC, began efforts to restore the tower. A big step forward for the group came on May 29, 2003, when the New Jersey Register of Historic Places listed the tower on its registry. On November 17, 2003, the National Trust placed it on their registry. MAC applied for and received grants totaling $1.3 million in funding for the project from the New Jersey Historic Trust, the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, and the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. Restoration architect Robert Russell of Princeton drafted the plan, and on April 14, 2008, MAC signed a contract with M.B. Markland Contracting Company of Atlantic City to carry out Phase 1 of the project. The company has completed such sensitive projects as the restoration of the Carnegie Library in Atlantic City and Lucy the Margate Elephant. A new army descended on the tower, an army of artists and skilled craftsmen with saws and trowels instead of guns, with tractors and pickup trucks instead of tanks and jeeps. Robert describes the challenges and details that army faced.
The interior diameter of the tower is only 15 feet. The initial restoration goal was to provide an access there to the upper levels without completely removing the floor levels in between, particularly levels 2, 3, and 4. At those levels, about 50% of the floors were removed to install the stairs, but that left a great deal of the original historic fabric in place, the ladders, some of the floor, some of the other interior detailing, so that the tower could be interpreted, because as people have said, we didn't just want to create an observation tower, we wanted to retain the historic character of the tower as best as possible. Once we got to the upper levels, even the stairwell that we were designing for the interior would have removed too much historic fabric, so we worked with the building officials to get some special permissions to use some spiral stairs up at the top to minimize the impact on the historic fabric up there. So the last 2 floors are accessed by small spiral stairs.
And I did the form work for the top of the tower, because the cap, like 2/3 of the cap that's overhanging, was falling off. And parts of it were falling off, but everything else was ready to just hammer off, you know? So it was in need. So I did the carpentry form work, and then we poured concrete up on the top cap. And then concrete truck came with an 80-foot boom and a pump, and we pumped 4 yards of concrete up in to the top there to make that work.
So this may have been done darker, but they wanted to stay with a mixture that was as close to the formula that was used back then, which is all this natural material that you see here, and that's basically what we use. We use natural sand from this area, and we found some matching sands, and we use the stones from this area, and then we use Portland cement, which is basically what's available, you know? You can see that. And part of the process, we would get the patch just right. Then we would actually insert the stones into the patch. So because we couldn't like form it or rub. The more we rub, the stones would disappear, you know? So you had to kind of get it right and then scrape it away and wash it away a little bit and then clean the area. So every patch was pretty laborious that you see.
As soon as Fred's last patch had dried and the last workman's truck had pulled out of the parking lot, Max celebrated with one of its famous grand opening ceremonies.
My name is Michael Zuckerman, and as Director of Mid-Atlantic Center for the Arts, it's a huge pleasure to welcome you all here today to our grand opening ceremony for Fire Control Tower number 23, our World War II lookout tower.
Our special guests today, the vets of World War II. We all agree that they are the real VIPs of this ceremony. And they are the members of that generation of Americans that we rightly call the greatest generation. Gentlemen and ladies, please stand, World War II veterans, so that we can thank you for your service to our country and making the life we enjoy today possible. We can't tell you how much we appreciate the world, our nation, and us.
At the end of the ceremony, Mac threw open the doors to the tower, and a steady stream of visitors began climbing. We'll have our personal tour guide, World War II historian Al Bennett, show us around.
This would have been your ladder to climb up. They were made out of wood to save steel, and you would only go up one floor, then you had to get off the ladder. The ladders were staggered. You'd have to go a couple of feet to one side or the other, get on the next ladder, and every floor had a staggered ladder. The reason for that is if you fell, you wouldn't come all the way down to the bottom, which would have been a big help. Notice you can't carry too much up there with you. So when we get upstairs, I'll show you how they brought their supplies up. Because you need two hands just to hold on here. Yeah. Right over here would have been the heating system for the tower. They'd have a pot-bellied stove right here with a small fan that actually blew the heat into this unit here, went all the way up, and you could see where she would exhaust. That's the only heat they had right about then.
Is there an exhaust at each floor?
Yes, as far as I know, there is. You know, where they were. These are all pictures of World War II people, usually pretty local to the area. Yeah, they put them up, and we have usually two vets are here on duty, and when people come up, they can stop here. They do have some information on a computer that they can pull up for you, but it's nicer to talk to the vets because they'll tell you their experiences during the Second World War. And when you're through with them, then you can continue on up. It's going to get a little tight for you over here. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if going up that way. This was their break room. You only had 4 people on duty. You only needed play cards, smoke, you could smoke back in those days, have coffee, play the radio, do whatever you wanted to do. Okay, this hatch actually went all the way down to the first floor. And when we get topside, I'll show you where the hook was. You had a block and tackle that went all the way down. Okay, what we have up here, we do have the original hook from World War II. And that hook would have a block and tackle on it. And that block and tackle would go all the way down to the first floor. So if they wanted to bring anything up, they did it on a basket. They just pull it up, and when you got all your gear up here, you put all these wooden plates back down so nobody would fall through and go into it. What we have here is our Asthma Scope. It's actually on loan from the people in Delaware. It doesn't really work. It's kind of frozen in spots. You can't really move it around too much. However, you would be able to move it when it was new. You could level it. They have different bubble levels, like the carpenter's level. And when you set it up, you would have it all level in the exact position you wanted it. And this is just like it looked in 1942. In fact, the eye hooks up here are original. The eye hooks in 1942. Now the top windows will move. They will open and close. It's a friction fit, like so. When you do open it, you want to turn this hook to keep it open, because if you don't, she might come down under her own power, and it will hurt if it hits you. These have wooden shutters on the outside also for bad weather. The bottom windows never did open. They never opened, they were always closed. We have a bench behind you, and the bench, believe it or not, was not quite to sit on. It was made to stand on, so you could look out with your binoculars. What you're looking at here is basically the bay. Half of it's the Atlantic Ocean, the other half is the bay. The Cape May Ferry, the line that they run on between here and Lewes, Delaware, is almost the borderline between the Atlantic Ocean and Delaware Bay. Those are the original hooks. The two brown iron-looking units, that's where your ladder would hook on, and there was a trapdoor on top. And that's how you could actually go out on the roof if you wanted to. You could get a better view up there.
We'll thank Al for a great tour and go back down the new spiral stairway to terra firma. Leaving the 6th level, you can see the narrow spiral stairways that allowed the architect to keep the top 2 floors largely intact. The 3rd floor's Wall of Honor. As we depart Fire Control Tower 23, let us reflect on this and many other accomplishments of our nation's greatest generation.